Live now. We're good to go. Hi, folks. Hello. I see folks starting to come in. Hello. We'll just give it another minute here. Hello. Hello. Just waiting for a few more folks to join in. Hello. Just waving at everybody. Well, folks, it's 2:30 and I'm really excited to talk about our very hot topic, financial advice for all. Our FAFA website will have this for sure, but today it's our special edition, Valentine's Day live. We're waiting for our guest here to hop on and then give everybody some more details. Let's see here. Bear with us here, folks. In the meantime, if you have any questions or comments for our guests, please make sure to use the bottom chat bar or a little Q&A feature at the bottom right corner. We'll definitely get to those questions and comments at the end of the call. Just waiting for Rachelle to connect here. Hello. Hello, everyone. Just waving at everyone here. All right, while we wait for Rachelle to come on, we do have a very exciting topic today, speaking about how to attain financial intimacy with your partner and how to kind of discuss the topic of finances with your partner in a positive way. Now, Rachelle Langlois will be joining us very shortly to kind of give us her financial advice on how to approach this hot topic with your partner. And I see the love here. I'm going to send it back. Thank you, everyone. And yes, so if you have any questions about, the topic of approaching your partner about finances and how to kind of bring that subject in when you first start dating maybe and why it's important. I see Rachelle has logged in there. 2 seconds. Please make sure to add those details in the chat box or the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen.
Hi.
Hello.
Good. You?
How's it going? Good. I'm glad you're on.
This is my first Instagram live, so I wasn't really sure how to get on, but I'm here.
This is awesome. Well, congrats on your first Instagram live. They're super fun. So we're really to have you here and to hear your advice on the very hot topic as talking to your partner about finances.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it. And I do think it's an important topic, and Valentine's Day is always a good time to approach that topic and kind of bring awareness to it. So
absolutely. And, we've been hearing a lot on our side because we've, via our social media polls, we've been seeing folks' comments around Valentine's Day. Now, one of the polls kind of said, well, you know what, in light of COVID, should we skip Valentine's Day? And it was a very close call. 38% voted heck yes. 40% said no way. And then the other said, maybe, I don't know. But as a financial advisor, does that kind of shock you, or is that kind of the standard?
Yeah, I was actually pretty surprised about the responses on that, and that 38% were like, yeah, let's forget about it for this year. And I like anything with COVID, it's been a time that we can kind of reflect on, like, is what we've done in the past is still relevant to the way we want to live today? And so I think it's a good opportunity for us to reevaluate Valentine's Day and maybe think about, other ways of celebrating it. And maybe that doesn't necessarily mean going out and spending money on one another, but getting creative about how we're celebrating our relationships on Valentine's Day. So I know we did another questionnaire. I don't know, you're probably going to touch on it on some of the creative gifts that you can give on Valentine's Day that don't cost any money.
Which was really nice. And I feel like also, being in quarantine this whole entire year, you probably with your partner, if you live with them, like, constantly. So now it's just like, it's Valentine's Day every day, so we're going to skip it kind of thing. So, but a lot are kind of being creative. We saw a lot of creative responses in terms of what to gift. And we'll touch upon that near the end of the call for sure. But one of the other I want to kind of get your opinion on this is we had about 51% of individuals say that finances should be spoken about, like that conversation should be had when you first start dating. Now, as you know, based on your knowledge, how do they approach that subject of finances when they're in a
Yeah, I
romantic
think that's a
relationship?
great question. And I always, if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I advocate for these money dates. And you don't have to be in a relationship to have a money date. I often have money dates with myself, and you know, I sit down and I look at my accounts and I pay my bills, and you know, I kind of look at whether I'm achieving the goals that I've set out to achieve financially. And I think when we're in a relationship, it's important to have those money dates with our partner as well. And it doesn't have to be often. It doesn't have to be every week. It can be once a month or once a quarter, or you know, as often as you feel is necessary in your relationship. But I know my husband and I sit down about once a month and have a money date. And you know, he usually rolls his eyes and doesn't really want to do it. But I think if you can make it fun, you know, sometimes we pour a glass of wine and we just kind of sit down and talk about it. And it doesn't have to be a long, drawn out conversation, but just kind of a check-in with your partner, and you know, maybe talk about some things financially that are concerning you, or things that you want to do differently, or maybe an expense that's coming up that you want to talk about. So there's a lot of different things. I think the more regularly you do them, the easier they become, and you start to have more in-depth conversations about what's important to you, what's important to your partner, and then coming together and saying, okay, you know, how can we manage this together? And you know, there's always one person in the relationship that leads the finances and kind of takes the control. But I think it's important to sit down, and even if you're not the partner that's you know, paying the bills or taking the lead on the finances, just to be involved and have an awareness of what that is. And so it's not feeling like it's falling on the other partner's shoulders either.
Yeah, and I think that key word right there is involved. Like, you know, feeling that that kind of conversation when it's two-way and you're actually making the time to sit down and have it, and it's not just like a conversation on the go kind of thing. You're actually blocking off some time to speak about this important, you know, subject here. I actually had a question, and you kind of answered it, and it was the frequency of these money dates. And I guess, would you recommend it based on needs of the individual? If there's a big expense coming up, you should have more money dates, or you know, how do you kind of go ahead and decide that, you know what, we should have this on a quarterly basis or a weekly basis? How do you decide that?
Yeah, so I think it's going to depend on the couple. I mean, you know, it's like anything. If it becomes too cumbersome, you're not going to do it. You're just going to say, you know what, forget it. So if you know, if I say you should do it once a week and that's too cumbersome for you, and once a month feels better, or even once a quarter, I think it's really up to you guys to decide what feels good for your relationship. You know, if you're in the process of buying a house, for example, you know, maybe that money date is once a week or once every couple days, just to kind of talk about, okay, where are we at for financing? What still has to be submitted to the mortgage broker? Or, you know, are we going to accept that offer? You know, that, so I think it depends on what stage you are in life, and what feels good and comfortable for you. Because again, if it's too cumbersome, you just won't do it.
True. Yeah, make it fun. I like the incorporating wine into the money date.
Yeah,
Definitely
or
always
I
makes it
actually
great.
had some clients the other day, and we were talking about money dates, and they kind of said, oh, I mean, because of COVID, you know, you can't go out for dinner and stuff, but they said, yeah, like we'll just sit down and talk about money for 15 to 20 minutes, and then after that we'll have a movie night. And I thought, that's great. Like, you know, yeah, do the business first. And then, you know, it doesn't
Yeah,
just be a money date. I mean, it can be a relationship date, and part of that is having a conversation about the money.
definitely. I think that element of fun definitely makes it a lot more easier to have, because it is a difficult conversation to have sometimes, for sure. And, you know, touching upon that, you know, when you're in a romantic relationship, you share a lot of things. You share secrets and maybe even food. But you know, when it comes down to your finances, the big conversation becomes about your bank accounts, your money. How do you share that? Now, what are your recommendations for those who are looking into possibly, you know, joining their accounts? Should they share it? Should they keep it separate? What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
again, you know, I think it depends on the couple, but one of the way that works for me and my husband, and that I see work for a lot of my clients, is having a joint account, but also having your own separate accounts as well. And the way that can work is, you know, you have the joint account and you can each contribute a certain amount of money every month. And then all of your joint expenses, like your mortgage or your groceries or your utilities, can come out of that joint account. But then you each also have your own personal account. And that's money that you can spend on, you know, whatever is kind of a priority or important to you without your spouse overseeing, you know, all of those expenditures, because we all have different priorities, and things that bring me joy don't necessarily bring my husband joy. And so he might be annoyed if he sees that expense. But having my own personal account allows me to make those expenses without feeling any guilt or having to answer any questions about where I'm spending that money, and then having the joint account for those more joint expenses. And that's something that's worked well for us. I actually had some clients the other day, and they do the opposite. And so they deposit all of their income into one joint account, and then they each take, I guess you can call it an allowance. I know that sounds kind of childish, but they each take a certain amount from the joint account after their income has been deposited, and they put it in their own personal account. And again, that's just for their own spending. I think it feels good to have that independence there. So that's something that I've seen that works really well. There are other couples who keep everything separate. And then they just kind of split the bills down the middle, where, you know, they pay for groceries or the mortgage and do it that way. But yeah, it kind of depends. I think the joint account just makes it easy for those joint expenses. There's no question about who's paying what and how much are we paying. It just comes out of the joint account.
Yeah, I think that it's an important subject, to kind of like a topic to speak about here, about like, you know, joint and, or separate accounts, because, you know, you'll have people say, my money, why should I be sharing it? This is my hard-earned dollar, kind of, you know, why do I need to let my partner kind of know that I spent $400 on shoes? I even couldn't use the word shoes, because $400 for shoes, you know, but, you know, that those are kind of things that, you know, couples need to kind of sit down and talk about, I think. And a joint account seems very smart. I do really like the approach where anything that we kind of share, like whether it's, you know, expenses towards groceries or the mortgage or kids in the future kind of thing, is in one account, and then two separate accounts, you know, for each individual to spend on whatever it is that they like. And with, you know, the accounts, we're talking about savings too. I would assume that it's a really good idea to kind of have a joint savings account to put towards future vacations or future big purchases. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's important too, to have joint savings. And that could be for things like emergencies. You know, if you own a house and the hot water tank goes, or you have to replace the roof or the windows, you know, it is good to have that joint account, savings account. Again, that's going to cover expenses that are joint expenses. So I do think that's important, or things like vacation that, you know, you're going to take together as a family. So definitely, I think that joint checking account, joint savings account is always a good idea.
Yeah, and you know, touching upon the fact that it really depends on the couple themselves. You know, it really depends on their habits, their kind of, you know, mentality around finances. Now, let's say that you've got two different people. You've got one person with a YOLO, you only live once kind of mentality, who loves to splurge. And let's say you've got another individual with a very, I'm going to save for retirement kind of personality and mentality kind of thing. Let's just say that these two people end up, you know, under the same roof with the same, bringing two different, you know, financial lifestyles together. How can two people with two different mentalities come together to kind of reach a mutual agreement when it comes to their finances? Does someone have to compromise, or can they make it work out for them?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And, you know, people like that end up together all of the time. We never are going to always be on the same page about money as our partner. And in some cases that can be very extreme, where you have one person who's spending they're a spendthrift and they just want to spend and adventure, and then you have the other one that wants some security and savings. And so one of the things I touch on with a lot of my clients, and it's kind of one of my favorite conversations, that it wasn't something I was doing in the beginning of my career, but it's something over time that I realized was really important for couples. And that was understanding what you value. So a lot of times when we sit with clients, we ask them, you know, what are your financial goals? And people will tell you things like, well, we want to buy a house and we want to save for our kids' education and we want to pay down our debt. And those are great financial goals. But what I really want to know is, what do you value? Why do you want to achieve that? Because most of the time, what you want to achieve is a direct reflection of what you value in life. So, for example, somebody who wants to save for their child's education, you know, one of their values can be learning and education. Or somebody who saving for vacation is really important to them. They may value adventure. So I think part of your money date should really be to talk to your partner about, what do we value? What's important to us? Because when I hear somebody saying that, you know, they're a saver and they want to have money set aside, to me, that says you value security. You value that financial security. And because of that, you want to have a secure savings plan. Somebody who spends their money more freely, let's say, for example, we live in a ski town. So, you know, they want the best ski equipment, or you know, the latest gear for their adventures. That person values adventure. So when we understand what our partner values, their spending makes more sense, or their saving habits. And it's easier to then say, okay, well, I understand that my partner values adventure or travel, and it's important for them to spend money on those things. And then on the other side of that, you know, the other person might say, well, I respect that you know, value security. And so it's really having that open conversation about, what do we value and how is that reflected in the way that we spend or save our money? And I think just having an understanding of that creates a more open dialogue, and it's easier then to kind of plan for that and say, okay, how can we meet your need for adventure or travel, and but also meet my need for security? Does that make sense?
Yes, actually, it's brilliant. I wish I had the heart button, but I know our viewers do, because that I want to just like heart that, you know, concept, because definitely it's huge importance. Like, you know, when you bring two people with two different lifestyles together, it's that concept of value is what you need to come down to at the end of the day. And you know, I know you started the conversation at the beginning of the call saying, you know, really COVID has really made us reassess our values and kind of sit there and think like, okay, is what I used to like care about, like a $400 pair of shoes, is that really what I value right now? Is that what I want to be spending on? Or should I be saving in like for emergencies? Because, you know, if 2020 taught us anything, it's, you know, we need to always have an emergency on the side, because you never know what could happen. This is, you know, a lot of things can, you know, come your way and you wouldn't have planned for it. And this is why, you know, in our conversations in November, we talked about the importance of financial planning. And right now we're speaking about how the importance of financial planning with your spouse or your partner in this regard would be very important to have this knowledge. I'm actually very curious to know, you know, when you're having these money dates, what would be your biggest tip? Like, if there's one conversation that should start off these money dates, like kind of leading them up to, you know, the quarterly money dates, let's say, what is that one conversation or topic that you should start your money date with? Is it the concept of values, or is it another topic?
That's a great question. You mean like if you're just starting you know, it's your first money date that you're planning with your partner? Yeah, you know, I think the first thing is really, yeah, to figure out what is important to your partner. Like, you know, your priority might be to pay the mortgage down as quickly as you can because you don't like debt. And your partner might have a totally different priority. And, you know, I think a lot of our disagreements in relationships stem from, you know, we might be fighting about something, but it actually stems from something else. And so it's really figuring out, you know, where are we aligned in our money and our spending and saving and financial planning, and where are we maybe not so aligned that's causing us a little bit of conversation, and whether that's, you know, a conversation about values or just simply saying what's important to you, you know, like what if we could only do one thing today, you know, in our financial plan, what would it be? and just having that open dialogue to figure that out. And I think once you do that, the conversation will evolve. And like I said, the more often you have these conversations, the deeper you're going to get into this. And you may realize things that you're fighting about that you know, all of a sudden you go, oh, that's why we're fighting about that. It's because I value this and you value that. Or so I think that's a good starting point, is just figuring out, you know, what's important, what do you value, and what do you want to spend your money on. And it doesn't have, you know, I would say for a money date, the idea is really for it to be fun. If it turns into a fight every time, then that's not going to be very, very productive.
Bringing you to a conversation at the end of it that's not on a positive note. Maybe the money date isn't so much for them. They need to kind of find another way that works best to kind of communicate their financial goals, or, you know, in another way. I have no idea. Would you recommend another way if money dates don't work, if they need to kind of sit down and speak in another way about their finances?
Yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes clients will come in, you know, if it's a conversation that you feel like you're not having any success at on your own, you know, through a money date, then maybe that is a time for you to say, well, maybe we should meet with a financial planner or financial advisor and see if they can't provide some guidance on, you know, where we should prioritize, or, you know, what we should be doing in terms of planning. And sometimes just having that neutral person who can provide the advice, or, you know, give you a bit of direction, can be helpful, because then it's not coming from your partner saying, you know, we have to pay down our debt, or you have to stop spending money on this. You know, it may come, the recommendation may be, they may be more open to listening if it's a third party, neutral party who's coming in and saying, you know, based on what I'm seeing here, here's a few recommendations for you guys. And that might just be a more neutral way to have that conversation.
Definitely. I think that would be a really good way to kind of get folks, you know, sitting down talking about this, because we've also, again, 2020 has taught us the importance of talking about your finances. If there's one topic that needs to be had, it's about your finances, for sure. On a more fun note, I want to kind of take your idea about gifts for Valentine's Day. I know we had a lot of creative suggestions coming from our polls, and one of them was, you know, contributing to your partner's RSP, for example. I thought, did you like one in particular? Do you have any ideas as to how to kind of give your partner a nice
sorry, Amani, you cut out there for a minute, but I think I got the gist of your question, which was, oh, you're still cutting out there, but you're just asking what I think is a good Valentine's Day gift?
Yes, sorry, I caught the cutting on my end as well, but no worries. Yeah, so what would you, as a, you know, financial advisor, recommend as a gift?
So I actually did the survey when Advocis sent it out, and I'm an avid reader. So I suggested a book on finance, and actually one of the books that I read recently, which is so interesting that this is an Advocis Instagram Live, is the one that was written by Kelly Keane, and it's called Talk Money to Me. And it's, you know, it was just a really easy read, and it touched on all of the kind of basic financial planning that we should be thinking about as Canadians. And Kelly obviously is Canadian, and so I know a lot of finance books out there sometimes are not from Canada, and, you know, they're talking about Roth IRAs and things that don't really apply for Canadians. But yeah, that would be one thing. If your partner is a reader and you are looking to kind of take control of your finances, then definitely that Talk Money to Me by Kelly Keane is a great book. And then going back to the conversation about values, one of the books that I have on my shelf, and I've had it for a while, and there's a great activity for couples on kind of determining what your values are, it's called Smart Couples Finish Rich. And the title always turns me off. It sounds kind of cheesy, but the activity in the book itself is really good if you're looking for a way to figure out, you know, what do we value. But some of the other recommendations, because not everybody's a reader, but I really liked, contribute to a tax-free savings account or RSP for your partner, or revisit your life insurance. I mean, if that's not love, I don't know what is. And a lot of people, they kind of buy their life insurance and then it sits in a filing cabinet and they don't ever review it or think about it, even though their needs might have changed. Or a lot of people don't know how much life insurance they have or how much life insurance their partner has. So I think that's a good suggestion. Yeah, there was so many good suggestions here. But yeah, those were kind of my top. I mean, I don't know. I would love a book, but maybe not everybody loves that.
I And I know that for me, though, what caught my eyes, the second point that you made was, contribute to your partner's TFSA or RSP. Like, I would have never thought of that. That was an excellent contribution on the polls, because that's definitely a different way of, showing your love for someone on Valentine. But that's definitely great. I think that I'm going to put the comments within the comment box, the list of the two books that you mentioned. Smart Couples Finish Rich, and the Kelly Keene's book as well. That's really great. I know that, for all our viewers on right here, if you're delayed on your Valentine's Day gifts, or you're curious as what to get what to get your partner, well, Advocis has you covered. We've released a list of items that financial advisors recommend for you to buy for your partner. So it'll be really nice to see what everyone out there has what their thoughts are around Valentine's Day and giving your partner a nice gift. Considering the past year that we've had, it's been a little difficult, but I'm sure that, everyone will find a very creative way to kind of show their love this year. But the conversation that we had today was really great. And I think that, we always talk about your partner's love language, but here, understanding your partner's financial language is huge, whether they're a saver, spender, what their values are, was a very important topic for us to cover here. And I believe that a lot of individuals will take a lot from there. I'm just looking at our clock here. I know we're down for time and there were a few questions. So in case anybody's joining us just now, don't worry, the whole entire replay will be available on the Financial Advice for All website. But if you have any questions, we have CFP CHS Rachelle Langlois from BC on the call, talking about your finances with your partner. If you have any questions, put them in the chat box or the Q&A feature at the bottom right corner. One question here comes from Nick. When should a joint savings account be established in a common law relationship? Right away, 6 months in? Thoughts?
Great question. I think when a lot of couples kind of make that switch is when they start to have joint expenses. So typically what I see for couples is when they move in together and then, you start to have that rent payment, or maybe you've bought a house together. I would say probably when you start living together is when I would see most couples start to have those joint checking or savings accounts.
Awesome. So Nick, if you're still on, when you move in, kind of have those conversations, I guess, right there. I'm looking at a really good question here from Will. And what are some red flags in a relationship that somebody might have totally different values than you about money? That's a really good question, to kind of catching the red flags right at the beginning when it comes to their finances.
Yeah. I think about this often, and I've been with my partner, my husband, for 10 years. And so I always think, had I gone back, or, if I was single again and having to go back into that dating pool, when would I have that conversation? And being a financial planner, I mean, I probably have it on like the first date. Sorry, I forgot what the question was.
Yeah, no worries. It's basically finding the red flags in a relationship that somebody might totally have different values and money than yourselves. Like at the beginning, what are the red flags?
Yeah, I think one of the red flags for me personally would be, having that conversation about maybe around debt. If you're meeting somebody and they have a lot of debt, that might be a red flag that the person is a spender and they don't necessarily value saving, or maybe they just haven't developed their kind of financial habits yet. And so for me, that might be a red flag is debt. Yeah, maybe like overspending, or, you know, it kind of spending beyond their means. For me, those would kind of be red flags. Amani, can you think of any other red flags?
I'm my head. Well, for me, I'm just thinking about, it's, these individuals with the red flags. Sometimes it's not easy to tell, right? So it's just, maybe that YOLO, you only live once mentality that we spoke about a little earlier with the splurging could be a bit of a red flag. Like, okay, well, money doesn't grow on trees kind of thing. We need to kind of slow down sometimes. But I think that could be, like, to your point, exactly, like a bit of an overspender might be a bit of a red flag that you might want to talk about, but but I guess that'll be
or maybe somebody who's a little secretive about their finances. I mean, there's always I think our finances are personal, and it is kind of a touchy subject, and it's not something, you're not going to necessarily ask somebody right away when you meet them, how much money do you make, how much debt do you have, But if you're getting farther along in the relationship and you're wanting to have those money conversations with that person, and they're not open to it, or they're very secretive, I think that would be a red flag. I do see a lot of couples that there sometimes can be some secrets when it comes to their money and their spending and how much debt they have, and I think in a relationship that can be very dangerous, especially, as you get in a more serious relationship, and, you get married or move in together and you're not aware of maybe some significant debt that your partner has, and they're very secretive about it. That would definitely be a red flag.
That's a huge one too. I think that transparency with your partner is really, really big. And I think that also comes down to the importance of having those conversations and talking about your values and being fully transparent about where you're coming from, where you want to go with your partner, because at the end of the day, it's a team effort kind of thing. So I really think that I know I took a lot, and I'm hoping everybody on the call has as well. Will, if you're still on, I hope we answered your question there. Definitely kind of watch out for the secrets, make sure people are transparent, and watch out for the spenders, I guess. Conversations to have. But we've definitely taken a lot. And Rachelle, I thank you so much for joining us here today. I know we're a little over the time, but we definitely got solid, takeaways. I'm definitely going to talk about values the next time I have a money date. So it'll be really all right. You folks take care, and in case you missed it from the start, we are going to have this replay on our Financial Advice for All website, and we'll also be updating it with our latest articles and ongoing details throughout the entire year. So make sure to tune in, and we'll see you at our next edition.
Bye.
Stay well and healthy. Cheers.